G'day everyone! So in this video today we're going to be looking at solving algebraic equations. So first I'll just go over how we actually solve these. So you solve them by getting x, or the unknown, by itself. Okay, in all these examples the letter x, okay, but it can be any letter. Okay, so that's what you need to do. You need to try and get it by itself. And what we do is we do inverse operations. So we look at the operations that are there and we need to do the opposite to get x by itself. Okay? So for plus, the inverse operation's minus. For minus, it's plus. Okay? If you're multiplying, the inverse operations divide. If you divide, the inverse operations multiplied. And if you have a square root, I don't have any of them in this example though, but the inverse operation is square. Okay, so that's all, and I'll get into the examples here. So you'll notice our first one is 3x plus 1 is equal to 10. Okay, right here. So what we need to do is we need to get x by itself. So what you need to do is you need to look at what is furthest away from the x. What's sort of by itself that's easy to get rid of. Okay, in this example it's the plus 1. So what we need to do to both sides is minus 1. Okay, and make sure you do this to both sides. So 3x plus 1 minus 1 just leaves the 3x. Okay, and 10 minus 1 is 9. Okay, now we need to look, we've got 3x, this means 3 times x. So, to get rid of a multiply, you need to divide. So we need to divide both sides by 3. Okay, so 3x divided by 3, this is equal to x, the 3's cancel out, 9 divided by 3 is equal to 3. So x is equal to 3. And that's how we do our first one. Okay, our second one, we've got x over 2 minus 5 is equal to 6. Okay, so hopefully you notice here that this minus 5 is away from the x. Okay, so we can get rid of that first. So here, to get rid of a minus 5, we need a plus 5 to both sides. Okay, so the minus 5 and plus 5 cancel on that side to leave x over 2. Just remember, over means divide, is equal to 6 plus 5. So we've got 11. Okay, so we've got 11 here. Now we've got x over 2. This means x divided by 2. So to get rid of a divide, we need to multiply. So we need to multiply both sides by 2. So now those 2's cancel out, so it just leaves, oh, that's a horrible x, let me do that again. So it leaves x, and then 11 times 2 is 22. Take a note of the difference between my multiply signs and your x's. It's a really good habit to get into, so you can tell the difference of when you're multiplying and when you're writing the letter x. Okay, so that's how to do A and B. Okay, so I'll work on C now, up the top. Okay, so C is 4 minus 3x. So 4 minus 3x is equal to 7. You'll notice here that our minus 3x is not at the start. Okay, so first off we look at what is separate from our x term. Okay, and this is this plus 4 out the start. Okay, this is this plus 4 that we have out the start here. So how do we get rid of plus 4? We minus 4. So you minus 4 from both sides. Okay, so this leaves negative 3x. And a lot of people do forget to leave that negative there, so just make sure that you're doing that. 7 minus 4. Okay, this is equal to 3. Okay, so we got negative 3x is equal to 3. So we've got, this is just like saying negative 3 times x is equal to 3. So how do we get rid of negative 3 times x? We need to divide both sides by negative 3. Okay? So what we get here, these negative 3's, they cancel out. Okay, they cancel out. So it just leaves our x there. X. And this is equal to 3 divided by negative 3 is equal to negative 1. Okay? So 3 divided by 3 is 1, and because you're dividing by a negative number, it's negative 1. Okay, so that's how you go about doing that one there. D. So now we're getting to a few more steps. We've got 5x over 2 plus 1 is equal to 4. Alright, now, yet again, just look what is separate from our x term. We've got this plus 1. Okay, so we can get rid of that first. So, to get rid of plus 1, we minus both sides by 1. Alright, so we've left with 5x over 2 is equal to 4 minus 1, which is 3. Okay? Now, yet again, we're still looking at what is away from the x term. So I'm just going to do this in a different colour. So you'll see here that this 2 is away from our x term. We've got 5x up the top, so we do this one next. Alright? So this is 5x divided by 2. So to get rid of the divide by 2, we need to multiply by 2. The inverse operation. So here we're left with 5x is equal to 3 times 2, which is equal to 6. Alright? So finally we're left with 5x here. 5x, which is 5 times x. So to get rid of 5 times x, we need to divide by 5. Alright? So 5x divided by 5 is x. 6 divided by 5, we can just leave it as an improper fraction of 6 over 5. Or if you don't like improper fractions, you could write 1 and 1/5. Okay? If you really wanted to, you could write 1.2 as well. So that's how you do that. Yet again, I often leave it as fractions. It's just a lot easier. Okay? Lastly, we have our 4x plus 2 on the top over 5 is equal to 3. Alright, so let's look again. What's furthest away from our x term? What's the easiest thing to get rid of? So in these last examples, we got rid of this plus, so we got rid of this plus 1. But you can see that's completely separated from the x here. This one is, the plus 2 is right next to the x in the same fraction. So what's actually easy to get rid of is our divide by 5 on the top. On the bottom, not the top. So it's all over 5. So this is actually the one furthest away from the x term, you could say. So it's the one the easiest to remove first. So we've got all of this divided by 5. Okay? If you were drawing this with brackets, this would be 4x plus 2 divided by 5 is equal to 3. Okay, that's what it would look like. And then hopefully from this you can see it would be easiest to get rid of that divide by 5 first. Okay, but they don't write it with brackets often in algebra. Okay, we just put it all on top. So, to get rid of the divide 5, we need to multiply by 5. So now we are left with 4x plus 2 is equal to 3 times 5, which is 15. Alright. Now, we look again. What's furthest away from our x term? We've got this plus 2 here. Okay, that's away from it. That's really easy to get rid of. So let's minus 2 to both sides. So we've got 4x is equal to 13. Now, we've got 4 times x is equal to 13. What we need to do to get x by itself, we divide by 4, because 4x is 4 times x. So x is equal to 13 over 4. And you can leave it like that. It doesn't say to put as a decimal. It's often better to leave it as a fraction because this actually tells us the number exactly. Okay, it's an exact representation of the number. Sometimes if you put it in decimals, you might need to get rid of you might only do it to 1 decimal places when there's more than that. So it's not the exact same number. Okay, so it's often better to leave as a fraction. Okay, so just going over everything again, and I'll get a different color so you can see what I'm doing. Sorry, it'll get a little bit confusing if you skipped over some. So first, just remember your, here we go, it's a different color. Remember your signs and the inverse operations for these, okay? So remember the inverse operations and how to do them. Then we need to isolate our unknown, which is x, or it could be any other letter. And you do this by getting rid of essentially what's furthest away from the x, okay? What's completely separated from it. So for this one, our plus 1 was. Our second example, we had our minus 5, and then we had to, because the x over 2's all together, we then need to multiply by 2. Alright? This third example, this 4 was separate from it. So we minus 4, and then we did the same. The fourth example, D, okay, we minus 1, but then we needed to go 5x over 2, 5 x's together, so we needed to multiply by 2, okay? Then our last example here, this is probably the trickiest one that people often get wrong, okay, so it might be worth just having a go over these again. Just make sure that you do the right multiplication first, have a look at what's easiest to get rid of. Okay, remember this here is like saying 2/5, so you're plussing 2/5 on the end if you separated it. So a lot of people minus 2 first, and that's a big no. Technically you could minus 2/5, but then you just get left with a fraction early and it's messy. Okay, so make sure you just try and follow these steps here, okay, in isolating it when you do get a fraction like this. So hopefully this helped with solving algebraic equations, and good luck.